AM 1220, KHTS, HometownStation.com. I am T here with Dr. Proctor, a show where we have an opportunity to look over the shoulders of the medical community and the support teams that take care of us as we have been impacted with a lot of people now, thanks to affordable health care. The idea that people have the ability to reach out and get help for their loved ones. The medical community has been impacted. Hospitals are impacted. And the more we can be our own best advocate for our health, for our loved ones' health, the better we will be able to serve the people we care about. Today is an opportunity for us to have a conversation, really a very, very frank conversation, to take away, if we can, a bit of the fear and stigma of something called hospice. Now, a lot of people have an idea maybe what that might be, but hospice, what it is a specialized type of care for someone facing a life-limiting illness. Now, this is, to me, one of the greatest phrases I've ever heard about end-of-life issues, life-limiting illness. And this is an organization that takes care of families and their caregivers, taking care of not only patients' physical needs, but emotional, social, spiritual, and hospice cares not only for the patients, but for their family and for their caregivers, often the one and the same. With us today is Vivian Thornton of Amida Hospice Care, and you can find them at amidahospice.com. They are here in the Santa Clarita Valley. I'm also talking with Rick Ferrante, the president of Home Care Services Santa Clarita. You can find them at homecaresantaclarita.com. And Vivian, hospice is, to me, again, as I've said before, I hold your profession and your team in incredibly high esteem. I think it's very honorable what you do, that you help these families during what is very likely one of the most difficult and it's a minefield of emotion dealing with end-of-life issues. I'm very curious, how did you come to be in the field of hospice?
Well, actually, hospice found me, really, at the end of the day. It wasn't something that I ever really had even looked into. There wasn't a lot of education on it, even in nursing school. But it fell into my lap, the opportunity. And as soon as I was really familiarized with the program and what it really comes in and does and how it helps the families, not just the patients, I loved it, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to provide this assistance.
Now, you have, it's radio, so not everyone can see you, but later on the podcast they can. You have a very kind face. You're a very warm woman. You have a way about you. Were you in nursing? Did someone approach you and say, gosh, you're built for this. You're someone that anyone would, and I don't know you. Today's the first time I've ever met you, and you are someone I would want in my corner if I were dealing with something stressful. You just have that air about you.
Thank you.
Did someone come to you and say?
It actually was something that I knew that I wanted to be a nurse. I always thought that I was going to end up in either labor and delivery or ER, something fast-paced, something always going on. And I got a chance to dip my toes into that field and try that. And even though I loved it and it was very challenging, I learned a lot. I also saw another part of when patients were not being explained everything about that end stages, when I could see that families just needed more support and they just didn't have that information or even the knowledge that they could get another kind of support.
I do love that you first came to it thinking you might want to be like in childbirth,
yes,
because it's very life affirming.
Yes.
And having had personal experience with hospice and people that I care about, a number of people that I care about, at least 5, I found hospice to be very life affirming. It was something I did not expect. I thought this was going to be, I don't really know what I thought it was going to be, but I sure didn't expect it to be what it was. And hospice was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever watched in what you do for patients, what you do for families, what you do for caregivers. So again, I hold you in very high esteem. Now, hospice care is for any person who has terminal illness or when curative treatment is no longer effective or even desired, because I've talked with patients about this before. Sometimes the treatment is so difficult. And so there comes a point where if it's not effective and you're just continuing to do it, it can be uncomfortable, and it can be something that, why there's the question arises, why do I have to keep doing something if we've come to the end of the curative aspects of this? Hospice is all about keeping someone, as the quote I read earlier, alert and pain-free and doing the best that they can. So this is people with any illnesses that are, again, in stage. And the idea that Alzheimer's was one that not everyone thinks of, dementia and Alzheimer's, as being something that has to be attended to. Tell me a little bit about who your organization is. Walk me through a bit about your levels of care here in the Santa Clarita Valley, and a bit about your team members at Amita.
Sure. Well, we are lucky, I believe we are lucky enough to have been founded and established by a nurse practitioner herself. So she is a nurse. She's available to do home calls and visits to assess patients. We have our hospice physician, medical director. That's our top of the line there. Then it's the skilled nurses, who are the eyes and ears of our physicians and nurse practitioner. We come in, gather all the information, and report back to our physicians so that we can get the orders and make sure that they are taken care of.
And you guys really are rock stars. Doctors are they're at a certain level. They oversee everything, but you guys are in the trenches, and you're taking the information as it comes in. It's a remarkable team that you work with that are taking care of the patients.
Then it's the basic one, which is the skilled nurses, the home health aides that come to the home to assist with the grooming needs of your loved one. It is only a short 1 hour visit, but a lot can be done in that hour, and know that it is a lot of help to most families to just have a little bit of a break, a little bit of help, even a little bit of teaching of observing somebody else that's trained in how to roll somebody, move somebody. It's very important to be taught how to take care of a bed-bound patient even.
Right.
And then also we do have our very important medical social workers who come in and help us with sometimes family issues, sometimes to just have be able to have an open conversation to our loved ones to explain. Sometimes,
social workers are, I think, a huge part of what you do, because anytime you're taking care of a loved one, I can tell you, going out with my own maternal unit and just looking for socks, it's like there's a lot of emotion there. She's got opinions. So now we're talking someone's very, very existence, and it's heated, and there can be a lot of anger, there can be a lot of resentment. So coming into hospice it can be a war zone for you guys, and the idea that you have a social worker who comes in and understands all those stages, even if we don't. We might come in with all the best intentions to take care of a patient, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, they might have issues, you might have issues. Now if the sandwich generation has kids, now you've got that into the mix.
Yes.
And maybe your caregiver has a job and they have to leave during the social worker is a huge part of what you do for the patients. I think that's lovely. So please go get back to your offices and give them a hug for me. So after social workers, you also have you have a therapist?
We do have therapists, and that's another thing that a lot of people believe, that you're on hospice, there's no more therapy for you. Absolutely not true. We do offer occupational therapy. We do offer physical therapy. It's just looked at in a slightly different way.
Sure.
It's not rehabilitation. It's it's safety teaching. It's showing these families and the patients themselves how things are going to be changing for them, how to safely ambulate from one place to the other, transfers, things of that nature, to teach you what kind of range of motions you could continue to do at home, so that to keep somebody just active.
And that's critically important. If you start to think about when you're starting from your original base, childbirth, and when you're teaching someone who's just starting to learn to walk, to learn to talk, sometimes if there's a limiting issue with your diagnosis, the idea that someone can come in and help you maybe relearn to do something, that the ability to do something has changed. You also have the phrase spiritual care providers. Well,
Yes.
tell me what that is.
And our spiritual care providers can actually be religious based, depending on that individual's beliefs, or non-religious based, where it becomes more of an emotional support. They're there to allow you to vent, express yourself. Maybe you're not that comfortable talking to a family member about what's going on, what you're thinking. Here we have another venue for you to be able to talk to somebody that's understanding of your situation and what you're going through.
It's such a critical component because while everyone else in the house is dealing with the mechanical issues and the physical issues, you, the patient, you're coming at this from a whole other place and they don't understand. You know, I remember my teenager, I had given her a journal when she was young, and I said, "You're going to say to me, I don't understand how you feel." You're right, I don't, but once upon a time I did. The idea that you bring people in who understand what these patients are going through, where the family really is not necessarily equipped or have had the experience. I think that's a beautiful component of what you provide patients. You have trained volunteers. Walk me through who these people are.
Yes, and that is for an occasion such as families have work. We have kids. We have other responsibilities as well that we need to take care of. So maybe during the daytime, one of our volunteers can come in and sit down and play chess, bingo, watch a movie, read a book, listen to some music that our patient would love to just have company over. That's definitely something that is available. It's based on family's desire or wish to have that service provided to them. And we also have another level of care that comes a little bit with that is when our families become overwhelmed, there is such a thing called as respite care.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there goes our poster. That happened to be last night on air during drive time, open mic, and here it is again. Oh, that darn post. We've decided we have a ghost in the room that wants to talk about this issue. So you have that. Tell me the next level of...
There is our routine level of care,
respite,
which is the regular follow-up. Then there's another level of care, which is a respite, which when families sometimes become overwhelmed, things come up, emergencies come up, they are not able to care for their loved one for a short period of time. So respite care is a maximum of 5 days, where we take your loved one for those 5 days to a skilled nursing facility.
Wait, up to 5 days?
Yes.
Oh, this is something that's new to me. I didn't know about this.
That's one level of care.
But it's an option. It's something that's
definitely
available.
An option for family crisis, family emergency. Something's come up. You're overwhelmed, burned out. You need a little bit of a break for yourself as a family. Taking
right.
Care
It's
of
like
your
the old
patient.
joke: if mama ain't good, ain't nobody good, and you have to take care of whoever's that main caregiver. Also has to replenish their batteries. They have to have that opportunity to come back to the game with their eyes open and having had a little bit of sleep. So they're incredibly important.
And then we bring your loved one back home, and you've allowed yourself to take a little bit of a break, which I'm sure they need to refresh themselves. So that's one of them. And then there's the continuous level of care as well, which when there is a crisis, when it comes to the time where you give a medication, it's not sufficient. Things are still going on. You need a nurse at the bedside. Then we, depending on that crisis, depending on that need, then we can have a nurse be sent out to you to now come in one-to-one and take care of that patient's needs, make sure that they're comfortable, make sure that they're pain-free, symptom management, and we take that on a daily basis. We continue until the crisis is managed. Then once the crisis is managed, we've taught the loved ones, the families, how to manage this crisis now themselves, and we go back to routine level of care, and that can happen as many times as needed.
Now, the services offered, you do everything from pain and symptom management. In addition to certified home health aid services, dietary counseling.
Yes.
And, this was something when I was first becoming familiar with Alzheimer's. And again, I have family members who thought Alzheimer's is just cognitive. It's just memory. It's just, all of a sudden I'm educating myself. I'm finding out that with Alzheimer's comes the inability to swallow appropriately. And now we have to deal with a completely, totally different form of diet for this patient. And so the idea that you have people that come in that deal with those kind of issues where you might not have thought of it beforehand. It's you really take care of everything. The other thing, hospice was incredible, and I know Amita Hospice Care is incredible at this also, was equipment, supplies, medications, things that I had no concept of. And so the idea that I think for a lot of families, when they are considering hospice care and they're frightened, they feel they might not have what it takes to manage this. Because again, hospice, when you're taking care of a patient, it's every day, it's all day, all night. And the idea that you guys came in and said, we're going to help you get through this. And a lot of that for me, in addition to the emotional support and everything else, was that you guys came in and you educated me about equipment and supplies. Now, for many patients, hospice, again, as I say, there's this fear, I'm not going to be able to do this. In your experience, at families where they come to you wide-eyed, I don't know. How can you give me a brief story about one of the, from like beginning to the from A to Z, a story about how you guys helped a family that maybe just didn't see that they could do this?
Sure. One example would be we had a dementia patient, and family has been struggling for a very long time, in and out of the hospital constantly. They've even inserted feeding tube because he's had the difficulty swallowing, and a wife is just lost. She doesn't feel like she has any help anywhere. We came in, provided all the medical equipment that she was going to need, which made it a lot easier for her husband and her to be able to still get around the home. One of his goals is something that he wanted. He really did regret having a feeding tube put into himself. He wanted to be able to eat, and it's not the same thing to puree something and give it to you that way. You don't have that same sensation, the taste, the smell. It's quite different. And his dream was, I want my Wendy's cheeseburger. He wanted, and his wife had tried to puree it and give it to him that way, and he was just like, no, that's not what I want. That's, I want my cheeseburger. So we provided occupational therapy, speech therapy, and they worked with him until we granted his desire of being able to take that bite of that cheeseburger and swallow it and enjoy it, and he was in heaven. And that to us was...
that's a
so
goalpost
rewarding.
moment. That's a goalpost moment.
Goalpost,
Yeah,
touchdown.
yeah.
We did it. We accomplished it. And to her, it was just, everybody kept telling her it was never going to happen. They're not going to help him. It's not. And for her to see hospice come in and be able to make this wish come true for him was everything to this
And
family.
again, you guys, you're not just about the nuts and bolts and the mechanics of the disease or the life-limiting illness. You are about making these days, these weeks, these months, whatever is given to these patients, the best it can be. And sometimes that very thing is whatever that patient wants. You help to grant those wishes, and some days it's that simple. I think we all have those. Rick, when you say we all have those days where it's like, if I could just get this done or this accomplished, and here you're doing it at a totally different level. But gosh, the satisfaction.
Yeah, I mean, it is amazing. This whole thing, this whole approach. If we see it all the time, literally all the time, where the situation becomes, we've cared for somebody, we do whatever we're doing for a long period of time, and then when this kind of scenario approaches, yes, people are fearful and they're nervous. There's a lot of things, anxiety there, and all those emotions come up. And it becomes a much more difficult and negative thing. And then when hospice comes in, it's amazing how we see the entire thing just calm down, how people kind of, the family members, the patient, all the professionals become a lot more cohesive. Mm-hmm. And then kind of turn a really negative situation into a positive one. Again, it doesn't not final necessarily,
right.
Maybe yes or no, but what it can do is just kind of this whole thing puts their arms around this problem, mm-hmm. and turns it into something that isn't.
And I do believe that hospice is one of those life-affirming industries and businesses that, because it is a business, it's a machine. What you guys have to come in and do, and all the elements that you pull together, and the idea that you have these staff members from doctor to nurse to therapist and social worker and on. It's this tremendous business that comes in. You're like the luxury ship that comes in, and you're just one-stop shopping. We're taking care of everyone, and I have great respect for that. We're talking again with Vivian Thornton, who's here from Amita Hospice Care. You can find them at amitahospice.com. Also, Rick Ferranti, the president of Home Care Services. You can find them at homecaresantaclarita.com. You're listening to Dr. Proctor here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. We'll be back after these messages. AM 1220 KHTS, your hometown station. I am T. Here with Dr. Proctor, a show every Thursday, noon to 1, an opportunity for us to look over the shoulders of the medical community, doctors and their support teams, to help us be our own best advocates for us, for our loved ones, as we deal with medical situations. This is a chance for us to educate ourselves, maybe hear some things that will help us ask the right questions or deal with issues in the best way possible for us when we're dealing with our loved ones. Today, we've been talking about hospice care. Hospice, specialized type of care for someone facing a life-limiting illness, their families and their caregivers, taking care of not only the physical, but the emotional, the social, and spiritual needs. And we've been talking with Vivian Thornton from Amita Hospice Care. You can find them at amitahospice.com, AMIDA hospice.com, and also Rick Ferranti from Home Care Services. You can find him at homecaresantaclarita.com. And as I've said before, and I will say it over and over and over again to anyone who will listen, I think one of the best places a patient can receive care when they're dealing with either a chronic illness, and I've had conversations about palliative care, being home, and with life-limiting issues where there's a limit to the curative aspects of medicine, where we deal with hospice. I think home is the best place they can be. And Rick, you have a feeling about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the world's changed. We're no longer where care has to be at a place, at another place that isn't comfortable. It isn't where you live, and that's is what you need to be kind of thinking about. And hospice is part of that. Home care, hospice, palliative, home health, all those elements are all about being at home and being a place where the outcomes can be even greater than taking someone out and putting them in some kind of institutional whatever facility, hospital, whatever it is.
Amita, for you, very briefly, give me what would be the top reasons you think a patient should be home?
Well, I believe that you will be absolutely the most comfortable in your home. You will feel the safest and most secure in your home, which I think is very important for them to feel like they have love and support around them at all times. And also, of course, the personal environment that you're going to be in now. You're not in that setting of a hospital where you're constantly being interrupted and disturbed by other people, other patients, other things going on, that's that setting that
oh my gosh, for me it's the noise, the beeping,
yes.
So, and again, someone constantly coming in. And for me, in addition to the concept of taking care of someone so that they are comfortable, so that they are absolutely surrounded by care. Love and care is important. But I love the idea that hospice to me is something that is life affirming, but that you bring to the patient dignity, and probably one of the most powerful levels of care that you can give someone. I think the people we love, whether it's a young person with an illness, whether it's an elderly person with an illness, the idea that we can bring them the most care, the most concern, and the most dignity we can when we have these life-limiting issues. I thank both of you for being here today on Dr. Proctor. Again, this is every Thursday, noon to 1 on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.